this is what I'm doing. Like, I get it now. Like, for me as an entrepreneur, someone who was just working, starting a business as a college student, I was just trying to make money. And I knew I could do this. I knew how to do it. But then as I started thinking, I was like, wait, like, I love being able to be a mentor, be like at least somewhat of a positive role model. And so there was this moment where I just had this epiphany of like, oh, you don't make snow cones for a living. Like, you create really great summer memories.
Known as the biggest town you'll ever experience, with its unique historical background, Tulsa is home to a diverse range of people and businesses with a thriving economy, delicious eats, nightlife, and entertainment for all ages. Tulsa is also home to business titans, entrepreneurs, artists, and foodies. Whether you're considering a move to Tulsa or just wanting to learn more about the place you call home, the Tulsa is Home podcast is for you.
Welcome to another episode of the Tulsa is Home podcast. Today we have joining us today none other than the Sultan of Syrups, the King of Cones.
Yes.
But no, joking aside, so the founder and owner of Josh's SnoShack and Josh Juarez.
Yeah.
And but really, like, whenever I heard that you had 70 employees over multiple locations, I mean, that's no joke.
Yeah.
And you've somehow taken what's normally a part-time, maybe side hustle, and turned it into a large-scale operation.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about kind of learning your journey, hearing about all that stuff and how you got started. Before we get into the business side, who is Josh? Who is Josh Juarez? Where are you from? Family? Kind of all that stuff.
Yeah, when you first said that, I was like, wow, we're getting really philosophical here. Who am I? I don't know. No, but like, just kind of background about me. I actually was born in Houston, Texas. That's where my family's from. Moved to Tulsa when I was 5, and then was pretty much here all my life since then. So I kind of I feel like I'm a Tulsan more than I am anything. Yeah. But I went to school at a small little private school. My dad was a worship pastor. That's what brought us here. There's a big church here, and they needed someone to do worship. And he had written some songs that had gone all over, and they found him and they brought him over. And so I was there at that school from kindergarten through high school. And that was actually when I was 15. It was kind of my first job, was actually working at a snow cone stand. And so that's where I kind of got like into it and realized, oh man, I could do this. Did that a few summers. And then did college and did grad school, and through that whole process, I started Josh's when I was 19. So put myself through college. Me and my wife got married when I was 20. She was 19. And then we just kept growing the business through those years. And now we've got a few kids and the business, and I coach soccer and I play soccer. So like, I'm just kind of like your stereotypical, probably, Tulsa dad who happens to run and own a business.
Yeah,
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. So the church brought you to Tulsa.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
And how old are your kids?
So I've got 13, almost 14-year-old.
Okay.
And she's actually going to start working
awesome.
for us. Yeah.
I was wondering.
She's been begging to do it. And so I'm like, you know what, you can work with me and a few of my managers and see how you like it. But she's like a natural. She's like Miss Gregarious, talking to everyone type of person. So so she's going to start working. So she's almost 14. And then my son is 12, Jonah. Nora's 14. And then Miles is 8. Awesome. And so, they're all, one day they all believe they're going to own Josh's SnoShack. So that's kind of like what they ask me. Like, especially Jonah. It's like, what do you want to do? He's like, I'm just going to own that. I'm like, cool, man. Yeah. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
I talked to my kids when the first time I told them, I was like, I met Josh. They were like, who's Josh? I was like, Josh's SnoShack. And like their eyes got really big.
I feel like I get that a big deal again amongst kids. And then it's like, but sometimes it's like an entrepreneur. I don't know if you feel this way, but like, I feel like just the pure, like, humanity of who we are. Sometimes we have these moments of insecurity, and like no matter what it is, no matter how successful you are, how not. And I feel like it's a funny journey from the time I started it at 19 to continuing to do it and grow it, because at the end of the day, I'm making snow cones for a living.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of feel that thing. So then kids are like, "That's so awesome!" I'm like, "Yeah, it's great." And I'm like, and then what do you do? I'm a surgeon. I'm like, "Nice to meet you." So, you know, like whatever it is. So it's just a funny place to be, but I do love it, and it's really fun. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
What were some of the milestones that you hit along the way to
Yeah.
get to, 70
Yeah.
employees?
So when I started it, I was very adamant about like, I'm gonna have one location. It's gonna be like, and we're gonna be the best. It's gonna be the best I can make it. It's all these things. And so after me and my wife got married, the goal was to put her through college. She wanted to become a nurse and then put myself through college. And so we were kind of on that trajectory. And then someone I think told me, "Hey, there's a parking lot. You should try to get in there." So I reached out to a gentleman. Like, "Yeah, sure." So, okay, we're going to have two. We're going to have two. It's going to be great. You know, and I'm going to work them all the time. And so like all through college, I was working all the time in the shack. So anyone we hired, like I knew them really well, but like I was 20 and they were 17, 18. So it was like they were all my friends pretty much, you know, like we became really close. So, when you think about milestones, I think about like when we opened the third location, it was like, okay, this is like I was just a senior in college when we did that. And I was like, this is actually pretty viable. Like this is a pretty good little business. And I remember looking at jobs that I could make money coming out of college, and I'm like, well, I can make about what I'm making now, as a college grad, or I could have these three shacks and like I kind of make my own destiny. I was like, well, I'll just do this, and I'll do this for one more year after I graduate. And so it was always nice when people would ask me, what do you do during the winter? And I would say, well, I'm a student, a college student. Okay, cool. And that's the only reason I went to grad school, because I was like, I just want an excuse to tell people like, I'm going to start a real job at some point, but I'm still in college. And so I started grad school and I was like doing that at the same time. And then I kept going. So we were year 5 or so. And I'm like, man, I guess this is a pretty big business. And I think it was probably around year 5 or 6. I think that was about when I read, we'll have to figure out the timeline, fact check this, but there's a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And the premise is basically people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it was about that year that I was like, I read that book and I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I get it now. Like, for me as an entrepreneur, someone who was just working, starting a business as a college student, I was just trying to make money. And like, I knew I could do this. I knew how to do it. But then as I started thinking, I was like, wait, like, I actually really love the kids that work for us. I love being able to be a mentor, be like at least somewhat of a positive role model. And my wife and I, Angie, was like, we both enjoyed that. And so there was this moment where I just had this epiphany of like, oh, you don't make snow cones for a living. Like, you create really great summer memories for a living. Like, and as soon as that clicked, I was like, we can open 10, we can open as many as we need to, because I don't really care about snow cones. Like, I just want to create great summer experiences or memories for Tulsa. And so once like Milestone, that moment right there was like a turning point where it was like, as long as I'm doing that, I'm good. Which is why I like literally eat maybe one snow cone a year. Like, I do not eat snow cones. Like, they just, like, I've had so many over the years, but like, not that I dislike them. I prefer like a piece of chocolate, if I want something sweet. So once that kind of happened, I was like, that's fine. Like, I know still how the product should be. I know what it should look like. I know I should taste, so I can still taste everything. But for that, I was like, I just really want to create these great summer experiences. And once I kind of swallowed that pill of like, that's what you're doing, then it became 10 times more kind of proactive of like, we start with our employees. So for me, like, if you work for me, my goal is that at the end of the summer, you look back and you're like, that was really fun. I made some money. It was really fun. I met some really cool people, and I'm going to remember this summer. And so that's like kind of my number one driver. And so once it's that, it's like, well, that's why now we have like all these fun, we call them family nights, but like events for the employees, and dodgeball, kickball at midnight, and all this fun stuff. And so what's neat is I have kids who worked for me when they were 15, 16, they're 30, 31, 32, and they'll come into town and we'll get coffee. and they'll be like, man, those were some of the best summers of my life. And I'm like, sweet, we were a part of that. So kind of in a nutshell, everything I just said, basically like we're trying to do that for our people because we assume if we do it for our employees, they'll do it for the rest of Tulsa.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens and why you probably 9 times out of 10 get a good experience when you go and it's something that's like, oh man, this was really great. And within all that, it was like, when we first opened, like the first 2 years, we would have lines for an hour. I mean, there'd be people in line for an hour. They'd wait for an hour to get a snow cone, $2, $3, whatever it was. And I think that's what also kind of communicated, like, people aren't here because they want a snow cone. They're here because this is part of summer to them. And waiting in line for an hour with their friends, that's fun. Like, it's not too big of a deal. And so that all kind of became, now that's what we sell. Yeah. Like, we just sell great summer experiences for Tulsa.
That's cool.
So, yeah, so that was a long answer to say
good.
Milestone. That was definitely a big one. And then to get to 70, it's like we just want to have the best, teenage and college students like in Tulsa who love Tulsa, who love smiling, who love creating fun atmospheres with that.
Yeah.
So.
How many locations do you have?
So we have 11 Joshes across Oklahoma. So we have 9 in Tulsa. We have 1 in Skytook. We have 1 in Stillwater.
Cool.
And so, and then we have 2 trucks that kind of go around and do events. And then we do like table events. So we actually do like 100 to 150 events a month during April, May, June, July, and August.
That
like
is
during
so
that
many.
way. Yeah, it's crazy. so we'll have on one day 10 events, like boom, 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 and you're going from one to. So that's a big, big part of what we do as well. And I think that's been something that's grown. I mean, pre-COVID, it was at a really big growth, but then post-COVID, once COVID happened, it was like people were like, well, we'll just have you come out.
Yeah.
And then it became a huge thing, and now it's just like been nuts.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, to pull all that off, you have to have some really good people. And I know you mentioned just, it's important to have those people. You want the best people in Tulsa who love Tulsa and love doing what they do and smiling and interacting with people. And before we even met, I had seen you at Panera meeting and interviewing. I don't know if it was like a post summer interview thing.
Yeah, I think we were recapping.
And so I could tell, and it's funny because I was only like 6 feet away from you, but and I was like, this guy, I don't know what he does, but he really cares about who these workers and people, and then it's just funny. Like I was trying not to eavesdrop.
Yeah,
I was
it's
trying
hard
to get
not
work
to.
done.
I'm a loud talker. I was with my team just before this, and they're like, "Josh, you talk so loud." I'm like, "I'm sorry. It is what it is. I'm like, you have to accept it." So everyone who knows.
Yeah, but I could tell like you really cared about the people and their experience and the employees and. So, like, what are some of those things that you do to look for the intentional questions, the interviews, the training, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because like as I get older and even go on to start other businesses or try to start other businesses, there's this philosophy that like it's all the same. Like, so whether you own a concrete company or you own Josh's SnoShack, like it's the same things you're doing. You have to, like a lot of it, when you actually look at like the stuff that it takes to make it work. And I think on that, it was so natural for me because I like people and I actually like that age. Like I like being able to influence that age. I coach kids, and so it was easy for me I legitimately cared where for these students, for these kids, because it's like, man, you're 16, 17, you can go this way or you can go this way, like in a lot of ways with life. And if we can just pull them closer towards a more positive life experience and we can kind of model some of that, then we feel really proud of it. And we've seen it over and over again. So, but for me, it was just my natural heart was like, man, I want to be a positive influence. I mean, like when I was a kid, I wanted to be like a youth pastor, So it was like that natural, like that's what I wanted to do. So it was natural for me, but the way it came out in business was very much like, just take care of your people, which is like what Amazon should be doing, Google should be doing, Tesla. I mean, all the greatest companies, they're doing the same thing. They employ entire teams. How can we take care of our people? And I think like when you ask the question of like the people and how you take care of them, it's like, man, I just think of what does a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-something-year-old really want? out of a 6-month experience with a job, and can we offer that? And so that's why with those meetings we'll have kind of follow-ups at the end of the season. Hey, how'd it go? What did you hope happened that didn't happen? And so when you and even kind of getting to the interview, I'm kind of summing this all to say, like, we approach it very intentionally, and probably more intentionally than a lot of businesses, and definitely more intentionally than a snow cone stand should. Yeah. Like, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, you got a kid mixing sugar and water, you know, and like, they're in there. And you can say, that's all it is, and now you're just a commodity. But if we're like, no, it's going to be this best product with the best ice, with the best syrup, with the best experience, then it actually is something like that you can package and say, no, we're not a commodity, we're selling something great. And so to get to your question of like interviews, even like, we do this thing, which just popped in my head one day, of like, when you're 16 and you go to an interview, it's your first interview, first job. Like, you're nervous naturally. And if you're across the table with me and maybe my manager and maybe like my head of, you know, employee experience, like those 3 people, like, you're sitting there like, what, you know, and you're stumbling over your words. And so early on, I mean, I want to say, like, once we actually started doing interviews, because for 4 years it would be me in the shack, someone would come up and they'd say, how do you work here? And I would just start talking to them, and I'd be like, you're going to be great. Why don't you come by tomorrow and we'll get you trained and stuff. So once we actually started doing interviews, it was like, let's just do it like a conversation with a group of people, because that's, when you're in the shack, you're usually with 2 or 3 people. So you're talking a lot already, talking to the customer. So we started doing this thing. We get so many applications. I mean, we got, I think this year, 100 so far. We'll probably get 150 applications. And we'll hire like 12. So it's like a lot. So we would have this thought of like, well, I don't have time to interview 150 kids. So I'm gonna do 4 at a time, 4 of us, 4 of them, and we'll just have a conversation. And so what it evolved into is like, when we started, we still don't very rarely ask like interview questions. It's more like, what was the last movie you saw that really made you laugh? Like, so in that question, that person is going to naturally think of something funny, and they're going to smile or not smile. If they naturally like start thinking and they smile real big, I'm like, okay, they're a smiler, right? Just like you're smiling right now. You hear the word smile, you're going to do it. But believe it or not, there's a lot of humans on this planet who will just not smile. I'm like, you're not going to work out. So in one question, I can say like, I got a pretty good idea if you're going to make it or not. And then we can weed them out just on, did you smile? And that sucks for people who don't smile, but we're not a place that you want to work if you don't naturally smile. And believe it or not, I have fired kids because I'm like, hey, dude, it's just not going to work. Like, you're just not smiley enough. Like, I'm sorry. Like, because I read some study that was like, if you're forced to work in an environment that puts an expectation on your energy, then it will be a more draining job if it's not natural for you to kind of have that. So for instance, if you're in an organization where it's expected to be like, smile, talk a lot, be loud, and you're naturally really quiet, that 5-hour shift is going to feel like a 10-hour shift because you're working so much harder. So I'm like, that's not a good experience for them if they have to be forced to smile and talk to customers. So it's things like that. And then we'll ask questions like, even we do a riddle, like, you know, it's like, I think it's from one of the diehards or something like that. But it's like, we do this riddle. It's actually really hard to solve. And we say, there's 4 of them. I'm like, okay, here's the riddle. You 2 try to solve it together, and you 2 try to solve it together. And I don't care if they solve it or not. Like, 1 out of 100 solve it. But like, I look at the kid and who talked first, who kept talking over that person, and then who would actually ask questions to and then would they smile when they were doing it. And oftentimes you'll have these 2 people and they'll be laughing, and I'm like, they're great. Like, doesn't matter if they don't know anything, they're gonna be fine. And you have 2 people who's like, well, this is what it should be, and they're telling the person's sitting there going, okay, yeah, like, what? And they'll talk over them like, you're not going to work. Like, you're going to talk over someone, you're not going to learn, you're not going to be teachable. Because when you have 150 kids that you got to interview, like, and you're getting down to 12, it's like, you got to make those decisions pretty quick. And after all these years, we've kind of got a pretty good formula for like, okay, that's going to work. We don't always nail it, and we probably miss some really great talent, to be honest, because like, they maybe just don't show up. But we do 2 interviews, so we kind of give them a second chance. And then even if they get through to the training, we'll call it, like, we say it's actually a hands-on tryout. And we do that because we want to make sure that sometimes when you're 16, you think you want something, and then you get into it and you're like, I actually hate this. And so we tell them like, hey, look, you're going to work in here for a couple 2-hour shifts. You're going to learn how to do everything. and then we're going to have a conversation. Is this fun for you? Are you enjoying it? Do you like it? And then we're also going to say, hey, I think you're fitting really well, or hey, this is not a great fit. Like, you're struggling to do these elements, and usually those elements are like you're not great at like interacting, you know, maybe. And so with that, we'll say, hey, maybe come apply, you know, next summer. And that's oftentimes with someone who's younger, like a 15-year-old kid who's like, maybe they're not quite mature enough or ready. But more often than not, if they get to the tryout, then and they are happy and they're working hard, they're gonna get through. And so it's like crazy because it's like I feel like our weeding out process is probably harder than most restaurants and fast food places. Like, because restaurants and fast food places, like, they look at your schedule, your availability, and can you be there? Like, that's it. Now, we need to have those things too, but like, some of my managers get mad at me because I won't fire people because they have horrible availability. But I'm like, but they're a good culture fit, and they'll be gone for a month, but when they come back, they'll be great. So it's like, you kind of got to figure out what you value. And for me, it's like all culture fit. So once we get that, then it's like, man, you're with us. And most of the time it's good, but sometimes we still miss it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How often do the same students come back?
I mean, we have, it's crazy. Like, I think they say fast food is like one of the highest turnover. I mean, like more than any other retail, more than anything, it turns over quick. But we probably keep the average kid for like 3 to 4 seasons. So they'll come back every season. And then there's probably about 30-40% that will come back from 16 till the day they graduate college. Yeah. And then we have a few that, if they go to college, and then we have a few that will come back. So for instance, like, we have a girl, she worked for us when she was 16 till about 22. And she was my little sister's, like, one of her best friends, but she's at a, like, stage of life. She's like 28, she's pregnant, her and her husband are, you know, they're pregnant. She's like, I don't know what I want to do this summer. Can I help you out? And I'm like, heck yeah. Yeah. So now she's going to be like our admin person in our office, like working and kind of doing that. But she's such a smart, high level person for Josh, is that like, she's actually over our, what we call employee journey now. So she's got like a spreadsheet of every employee, how they're doing at each little kind of, you know, measurable metric. And okay, they're ready to be cleared, or they're ready to be in the shack by themselves. Yeah. So it's like, so she's like, yeah, I'll do that. I'm like, sweet. So we get people, I mean, we've had kids who go away who for 2-3 years. They'll move to California. We had one kid, and she came back. She's like, hey, I'm here for like the next 2-3 years. I'm gonna do grad school. I'm gonna do this other stuff. Can I work? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I want to run social media. I want to run marketing. I was like, cool, go for it. Awesome. And so we get that a lot. And so like, I think it's all over, but the ideal person is like, we get them from, you know, 16 to 22. That's like the perfect, because we get them for high school and maybe the last year of college. Yeah. And even if they get an internship, we get a lot of kids, they'll get an internship and they'll be like, but I'll work 2 nights a week for you. Cool. And I'm like, sweet. So it's, yeah, it's a great, I mean, like, the thing is, like, when you're in there, it's a super fun job and you actually make like really good tips. So like, it's hard to beat because it's super flexible and you work for like 5 hours. You're like, man, I just made a ton of money. So kids love that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
I mean, the logistics of, because it's not like you have like the same 4, 5, 6 people at any one shack, right? Yeah. Like you rotate them in and out. Yeah. And then also, I'm sure personality fits with the different employees. Yeah. Like how do you chart out that, or who's in charge of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's interesting because we thought about like creating a program or even using some software that was like, they put their availability and it plugs them all in. But the problem is that like you have A players and you have B players, in the sense that like just confidence level or ability to do something. And so that's hard to figure out. But then you have 2 A players who hate each other, or you have 2 A players who are like in love with each other. Like, okay, we got to keep that separated both ways, you know, like. And so we have a team. We all kind of every other Monday get together and make the schedule, but we have it all. And I have a girl who's over all that, and she makes sure it's done right. And then I got a couple people who know personalities. So I've got like, they're in the shacks with the kids, so they know like, hey, this person isn't like this person. And we really try to, like, today, for instance, we're going to have our, what we call like Josh Econ. It's the stupidest name, but like one of my people said it, and I was like, sure, that's fine. It's so dumb, but like we just kind of do. Everyone has to come to this, and it's a like before the season. These are kind of the things we're doing, and so even that, like we'll kind of get a read. We'll send out questionnaires like, is there anyone that you don't like working with? Anyone that makes you feel uncomfortable or anything like that? Most of the time, I mean, maybe one or two will have responses that are like, I don't like working with that person. And if it's an issue, I mean, we'll have to address it. But all of them is like, I feel like they, want to be on ice, like making the ice. Like that's the coveted job when you're in there. Like you want to be the person making the ice. You kind of got to share that position. And so it'll be something as stupid as that. Like they just always hog the ice. It's like, okay. So, but most of the time they all get along pretty good. And that comes back to the culture thing. Like if you intentionally create a culture where it's like, no, we will get along, like, or you just won't fit. And unless it's something like that's a disrespectful element or an uncomfortable element, like just because you don't like the color of their hair, like, no, we're gonna work through this. Yeah. So we kind of, I think our family nights that we do help kind of keep that going. And it's crazy because like we've had multiple marriages out of the shacks, like kids who met at the shack and they're getting married, like multiple, probably 3 or 4, maybe
That's
5.
cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then we've had multiple best man, best woman. What do they call
Bridesmaid.
Yeah, we've had all of it. Yeah, bridesmaids, groomsmen. They never even knew each other, and they're their best man in their wedding. And that to me is that's why I'm like, man, that's pretty sweet that I get to be a part of that. And it's a thing of like every other job these kids could go get, they will just be like a cog in the wheel. And it is what it is because it's your first job. Like it makes sense. Like you go work for anywhere. And I think we really try to be very, very vocal of like, if there's something interesting that you see in this business and you come to me and say, I want to be over TikTok or I want to be over Instagram, I'll say, sweet, like go work with this person this summer and whoever's over that, work together, help them out and whatever. And if you love it and they move on, you take it. And so it's like you got kids who are 17 who are getting like real life portfolio that they're building, and they go sell that. And that does happen too. Like anything they do, we'll do internships, stuff like that too. So
awesome.
It's all of it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's next for Josh's?
Yeah.
I mean, are you trying to expand out of Tulsa more than Stillwater?
No, I mean it's an interesting business because like there really aren't any barriers to entry. And when you think about even like franchising or something like that, like it's tough because if you go into a different city or state that people don't know it, then it has as much value as Billy's SnoShack. So I think that's kind of like a tough growth model. Be like, let's expand out. But college towns, like they know us. So like University of Arkansas, tons of Tulsa kids, and even Norman and OKC, like all these towns that do have colleges or universities that kids from Tulsa go to have some value. I mean, someone told me they went to, I think SMU or maybe TCU. I can't remember. It was one of those nice schools down in Dallas. And they were like, I saw someone wearing a Josh's SnoShack shirt. I was like, that's crazy, So, I mean, like, it is in different places, but for me, the next step is that we're trying to really, like, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, at another time, but, like, I'm starting a new business, so I'm actually trying to tie up Josh's SnoShack so that it can be run really, really well without me being present. Yeah. And so that's probably the steps that I'm going through right now is like I have someone who's coming in who's going to kind of take my position and make sure it's run really well and kind of make sure all the systems are the way they should be, which at this time they're probably not where they need to be. So that's what I'm really trying to do right now is make sure our processes and systems are really shored up. And then the truth is whoever takes the guy who takes my position could actually grow this business more. And it's just a matter of what his drive is. For me, like in the time I've been running this organization, it's been like, I want to create a great experience. I want all these things for these kids, for Tulsa, for Josh's SnoShack, be something. But then there's also a very real, I have 3 kids. I want to be their soccer coach. I want to be their dad. I want to be a good husband. I want to be all these things. And, like being an entrepreneur, those things can be mutually exclusive at times. Like you get into the thick of it and you're like, I really suck as a dad right now, or as a husband, or as like, at least I feel that. And I never want to feel that for too long. And so it's like, Josh is where it is because it's given me the ability to be great. I would say maybe my wife wouldn't agree, but like most of the time, a pretty great in all those ways, because I have more time than your average entrepreneur. I have season. I have two months really where I can literally turn my phone off, and be like, I can just go do anything and no one will bother me. And that's hard for any entrepreneur, for any business owner. And so that's a luxury. And so I've tried to kind of like lean into that and be like, okay, so for a season, it's been exactly what it should be. But I think someone with a little more drive who wants to really go nuts with it could really take it to another level that I can't.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
All right. So to keep with the brand,
Yes.
Tulsa is home.
Yes.
Why would you say Tulsa is home to you personally? Why do you enjoy having a business in Tulsa? And what do you think Josh's contributes? And we kind of touched a little bit on that. More so than just shaved ice.
Yeah.
Because we know it does.
Yeah. For me, I mean, like, I probably love Tulsa more than your average, person loves their city. And like, I don't know if that's because there's this overwhelming amount of gratitude that it supported what I created. Like, maybe that's like in the back of my mind why I love it so much. But on the surface, like, I think the people in Tulsa are pretty incredible. And that's what makes it what it is. Like, when you think of Southern hospitality, or you think of just kindness and grace, and like, there's a lot of good in Tulsa that is like that, and every city's got its kind of negative things, but I think more than most, it's a very inviting city, and it makes people feel very at home when they come here. So for that, like, I've always loved it and felt like that's what I've felt. And as far as being a part of it and what we bring to it, or feeling like, why we're glad we're a part of it, I really do think like the goal of trying to be part of Tulsa, like, culture. I mean, that if like I die and Josh's SnoShack goes away and people look back at an era and they're like, there was this brand that was associated with summer Tulsa culture, like more than most or more than average, and it was this brand and it was cool and it made Tulsa summer what it is, then like, I think I'd be really, really proud. Like, I got to be a part of bringing culture to a city, and like, I love that. And so like, even with, when I think about this new endeavor that I'm doing, like, I've realized through the journey that like, what wakes me up every morning is and why I continue to want to create businesses in this city is because the driving force for me is I just want to really create cool stuff for Tulsa. Like, in the last 2 months, that's been the epiphany I've had. Like, I don't want it, like, making money is great. Like, and if it can make me money, that'd be great. It needs to, because I got to provide for my family. But if at the end of it, it's like he created something really cool for the city, that makes me super happy. It makes me really proud. And it's what I hope to accomplish with Josh's and whatever else I do in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So to wrap up, what's the best way to people reach out to you or to follow you? If you do specials or when you're opening?
If you Google Josh's SnoShack, or even if you spell it wrong with a W, there's no W in it, it's just Josh's Shack. If you do that, all our stuff will pop up. Our website, if you want to book an event, you can go on there. If you want to follow me personally, like, I'm pretty quiet on social, but actually with this new project, I'm going to start getting really vocal and like communicating kind of the journey of an entrepreneur. Is kind of like this new, like, when you start something new, you often don't journal or you don't keep it. So I'm going to start just kind of vlogging and just being like, this is what I'm going through. This is what it's like to start a business in Tulsa. And so I'm going to start kind of doing that on Instagram. And if you find Josh's SnoShack, you can probably find me. I'll comment or something. You'll see it.
Cool.
And then, if you go to our website and you just contact us page, I see all those emails too. So if you want to reach out to me personally, that's probably the easiest way. Just go to our website and try to contact us.
All right.
Cool, man.
Well, I appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely.
And so we're gonna do some fun giveaways and free stuff, and as we launch the podcast, and you'll be well open, running this summer by the time this releases. But
cool, man.
Yeah, so appreciate it. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Cool.